the soul shift begins. But you don't realize it yet. You start to feel strange in familiar places. Conversations that once thrilled you now drain you. Rooms that once made you feel safe now feel too small. And people you once chased start to slip away, not because they changed, but because you did, quietly, subtly, radically. And the world around you hasn't caught up yet. This is how the shift begins. Not with someone walking into your life, but with something sacred breaking open inside of it. The shift isn't external, it's inward. We're taught to search outside ourselves, to look for the one in apps, cities, timing, fate. But Carl Jung taught us that the most meaningful relationships come only after an internal event. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. This is that moment when what you once called loneliness starts to feel more like sacred isolation, when heartbreak begins to feel like divine instruction, when silence doesn't mean emptiness, but preparation. You're not alone. You're becoming. You're softening your armor, realigning your energy, and shedding the version of you that believed love had to be earned through performance. This is not emptiness, it's sacred clearing. The universe doesn't hand you a soulmate while your hands are full of expired attachments. So it begins by clearing the people you tolerate, the patterns that numbed you, the fantasies that never loved you back. And here's what's terrifying. It feels like loss, but it's not. It's soul-level pruning. You're being stripped of what doesn't belong, so you can finally receive what does. This isn't punishment. It's divine alignment. But only if you don't run back to the very things you were meant to release. You begin to question everything. During this shift, your mind won't understand what your soul already knows. You'll say, why am I losing everyone? Why does everything feel meaningless? Why do I feel like I don't belong anywhere anymore? Because you don't. Not in the version of your life that was built to survive, not thrive. Your nervous system is still wired for survival. But your soul is calling you to wholeness, and there's a war happening in the background between the you that keeps people comfortable and the you that is finally ready to come home to yourself. Don't silence that war. Study it, because that's where your soul is speaking loudest. The ego will resist. The ego hates transformation. It would rather stay miserable and familiar than risk being happy and unknown. So it will whisper, you're too much. You're too hard to love. No one will ever stay. Just go back, but don't, please don't, because the you that they didn't understand, the one that felt like too much, too soft, too intuitive, too deep, is exactly the version of you that your soulmate will recognize instantly. They're not coming for your mask. They're coming for your essence, and that essence is being purified. Through this fire, the world around you reflects the inner shift. Watch your environment. The external world is now mirroring the internal shakeup. You may feel drawn to solitude, lose interest in shallow conversation, question all dreams that once defined you, start saying no without guilt, withdraw from drama you used to chase. This is the soul detoxing. You're letting go of everything that was once a distraction from your own divinity, because the soulmate you're preparing for doesn't complete you. They mirror your completeness, and that means you have to meet yourself first, fully, fiercely, forgivingly. Self-confrontation. The path to wholeness. You will have to face the parts of yourself you've hidden behind busyness and people-pleasing. You will grieve illusions you called identity. You will outgrow the you that tolerated half-love. You will feel your own wounds screaming louder before they finally release. This isn't breakdown. This is breaking open. Your vision will become clear only when you can look into your own heart. Carl Jung, this is that moment. You're learning to see yourself, not through the eyes of a partner, but through the eyes of truth, because only when you witness your own soul can you truly recognize its reflection in another. The soulmate isn't coming to save you. They're coming to walk with you, because you saved yourself. The soulmate doesn't show up to fill the void. They show up when you've learned to sit in the void and realize you were whole all along. That's when the universe says, now they're ready. Not because you're perfect, but because you're real. Because you've stopped chasing closure from others and started closing your own wounds. Because your self-love stopped being a performance and started being practice. You become magnetic without trying. Here's the paradox. When you stop begging life to bring you love, it does. Not because you needed someone, but because you no longer needed anyone to complete you. You are no longer radiating lack. You're radiating clarity. You're no longer echoing trauma. You're resonating truth. And people will feel it. The right ones will be drawn in. The wrong ones will disappear. And you'll feel peace either way. Because you finally realized the real soulmate was never them. It was the version of you that you're just now meeting. This is the shift that happens before they arrive. When you stop searching and start remembering the inner awakening, why the soul must become whole before it merges. It's a strange truth that the deeper you go into yourself, the more prepared you become to truly meet another. But that truth rarely feels comforting in the beginning. It feels like abandonment. It feels like loneliness. It feels like standing in a house you once built with your wounds and watching it fall apart in silence. And yet, this is the birth of soul readiness. Because before you can merge with someone else, you have to reclaim the parts of yourself you disowned. Not the polished parts, not the parts you share on good days, but the shadow, the rage, the grief, the ache you thought no one would ever love. That's the beginning of the awakening. Jung's mirror. Love is an inner recognition first. Carl Jung believed that real intimacy begins inside. He called it individuation, the process of becoming whole within oneself. The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. But if you haven't yet met yourself, how will you recognize the one who's meant to transform you? You won't. You'll confuse trauma bonding with love. You'll confuse need with connection. You'll chase those who recreate your childhood patterns and call it chemistry, because unhealed wounds seek familiarity, not truth. And that's why the shift must happen first. What awakening really feels like. Most people think awakening is blissful, that it feels like freedom or joy. But it doesn't. Not at first. It feels like shedding skin. It feels like betrayal to your old self. It feels like crying for no reason, and craving silence, and questioning every decision you've ever made. Because the version of you who was loved for being small is now being asked to expand. And growth doesn't feel safe when your nervous system was conditioned to associate love with self-abandonment. So you begin to feel hyper-aware of who drains you, uncomfortable in environments you used to tolerate, disinterested in conversations that lack depth, unsure of what's next, only sure of what must end. This is the sacred void, the space between who you were and who your soul is asking you to become. This is why you felt lost. You weren't broken. You were unlayering. You were shedding personas. The caretaker, the pleaser, the overachiever, the emotional translator. Not because you failed, but because those roles were never love. They were survival. And now, you're remembering that love doesn't require performance. It requires presence. So the universe removes the roles. The people who rewarded them fade away. The old dreams collapse. The mask begins to feel unbearable. Because now your soul wants to breathe. It wants to be seen as it is, not as it was trained to appear. And this is the most painful and most powerful part of the awakening. Wholeness feels empty before it feels full. This part might break you. You'll want to run back, to text the person who made you feel needed, to apply for the job that once gave you identity, to keep yourself distracted with almost relationships that feel like love but leave you empty. But something in you won't let you go backwards anymore, because now you've tasted what alignment feels like, and misalignment makes you nauseous. So you stay in the void, in the quiet, in the not yet, and slowly, something shifts. You begin to enjoy your own company. You laugh alone. You dance alone. You cry and hold yourself without shame. You stop needing to be chosen, because you've already chosen yourself. And this is what prepares you for a soulmate. Not longing, not waiting, not proving, but presence. But what if they never come? This is the question that haunts the most self-aware people. I've done the work. I've healed. Why am I still alone? Here's the truth. You're not being punished. You're being aligned. The delay is protection. The silence is sacred. The time alone is not empty. It's fertilizing the ground for something that will not require you to dim. And if it hasn't arrived yet, it's not because you're unworthy. It's because your frequency is still calibrating to the kind of love that won't collapse under your truth. Because once you vibrate in wholeness, you can't be met halfway anymore. And that might take time, but it will never be wasted time. You begin to radiate differently without even trying. Your presence begins to feel different to others. You might notice strangers open up to you. Old connections resurface to apologize. People say, you seem lighter somehow. You attract new souls who reflect your growth. Old dynamics feel too loud and chaotic. This is not coincidence. It's energetic. You've stopped projecting need. You've started emanating peace. And peace is powerful. It's the signal that you are ready, not to be completed, but to be mirrored, because that's what a soulmate really, a mirror. They don't arrive to fix you. They arrive because you finally stop trying to be fixed, and your self-acceptance is what calls them forward. They recognize you because you finally recognize yourself. The soulmate doesn't arrive as a test. They arrive as confirmation. You'll recognize them not by their face, but by the way they make you feel like home inside your body. Not because they complete you, but because they don't ask you to betray yourself. And you'll notice, you're not nervous. You're not overthinking. You're not wondering if you're enough, because for the first time, you're not performing, you're being, and they love you there, in that stillness, in that presence, in that place where your soul doesn't have to apologize for its depth. The soul knows when it's ready, not when it's healed perfectly, but when it's surrendered. And in that surrender, the heart softens, the body relaxes, the energy clears, the path opens, and without warning, often in the most ordinary moment, they appear. But they don't awaken your soul. They respond to the part of it that finally awakened itself. They don't complete you. They remember you because you finally remembered yourself. The invisible magnetism of a whole soul. Why you no longer chase, but attract. There comes a moment, quiet and almost imperceptible, when you stop chasing. You stop needing to be chosen. You stop twisting your essence into something more palatable. You stop explaining your depth to those who cannot hold it. And something shifts. You begin to attract, not by strategy, not by charm, but by frequency. The world starts bending toward your presence, not because you're louder, but because you finally become real. This is the magnetism of a whole soul, and you didn't force it. You became it. Magnetism is not manipulation, it's alignment. People misunderstand attraction. They think it's about seduction, mystery, or tactics. But Carl Jung knew something deeper. He believed that the unconscious, when made conscious, becomes magnetic, that the more you own your inner reality, the more the outer world shifts to meet it. What you resist not only persists, but will grow in size. Carl Jung, when you were chasing love, you were resisting yourself. Now that you've stopped, you've made peace with the very parts that once repelled connection. And that peace, it's the source of your quiet power. You're no longer asking for love to find you. You're simply available for it, without abandoning yourself. In the process, you see through everything now. The world hasn't changed. You have. You now recognize the energy of those who only want your light, but not your shadows. You feel when someone's presence is a transaction, not a connection. You can sense when someone is drawn to your glow, but terrified of your truth. And you don't beg anymore. You don't explain your worth. You don't shrink your standards to stay interesting. You don't lose sleep over being misunderstood, because the magnetism you hold is no longer about being accepted. It's about being in resonance. You radiate without effort. This is not the kind of energy you can fake. You don't walk into rooms needing attention, but attention finds you. You don't seek validation, but your silence carries gravity, and people feel it, not because you've become intimidating, but because you've become sovereign. Your presence no longer asks, "Will you choose me?" It quietly affirms, "I already chose me." That's what shifts everything. Your relationships, your opportunities, your visibility, because people can sense, energetically, when someone is no longer seeking love, but living in it. You're no longer addicted to chaos. Before the shift, chaos felt like home. You confused inconsistency with passion. You mistook anxious bonds for intimacy. But now silence feels safe. Stability feels sacred. Peace doesn't bore you. It sustains you. You're no longer entangled with those who require drama to feel alive, because you've tasted the peace of alignment, and anything less feels foreign. So naturally, you attract others who are also done with pretending, others who've outgrown emotional games, others who see love not as rescue, but as recognition. From force to flow. Before you awakened, love was something to chase. It was a future to secure, a conversation to win, a commitment to convince someone into. Now, you understand love as an invitation, not a negotiation. You don't force connections. You observe them. You don't cling. You let people reveal their capacity. And you no longer take it personally when someone can't meet you, because you're not in scarcity anymore. You're in sovereignty. And from that place, the soulmate arrives. Not because you demanded it, but because your very existence whispered, "I'm ready." You are comfortable in solitude. This might be the clearest sign of soul-level magnetism. You're no longer afraid of your own company. You've built a life that doesn't need to be filled, only shared. You take yourself out without waiting to be invited. Find joy in your morning rituals. Feel no shame in sleeping alone. Refuse to settle for someone who doesn't amplify your peace. You are not bitter. You're whole. You are not lonely. You're aligned. And this detachment, this gentle sense of self-sufficiency, makes you luminous to the right kind of heart. Because wholeness is rare, and rare is magnetic. The energetic loop has closed. You used to cycle through the same people, the same lessons, the same pain, but not anymore. Why? Because you learn it. You integrated the lesson. You stopped outsourcing your worth. You stopped negotiating your non-negotiables. You stopped mistaking chemistry for compatibility. And the loop closed. Now, you don't chase closure. You create it. You don't beg for clarity. You embody it. And when you no longer mirror dysfunction, you stop attracting it. This is what Jung meant when he said, "We don't attract what we want. We attract what we are." You are wholeness now, and wholeness only attracts truth. Soulmate energy recognizes wholeness. When they arrive, you won't doubt it. You won't overanalyze texts. You won't seek signs. You won't wrestle with, "Do they love me?" Because you'll know. And more importantly, you'll be known. There will be no masks, no strategies, no winning or losing, just presence. They will not be intimidated by your strength or confused by your softness, because they have done the same work. And when two whole souls meet, there's no drama, there's only resonance. You are no longer a seeker. You are a signal. You don't manifest from desperation. You magnetize from alignment. You don't chase the one. You become the one, so you can meet the one. And when it happens, it won't feel like a high. It will feel like home. You stopped chasing. You remembered who you are. And now, they're on their way. The soulmate isn't a fantasy. It's a mirror for who you've become. You didn't find them by luck. You didn't stumble into a perfect moment. You didn't attract them because you finally fixed yourself. You met them because you met yourself. And in that sacred recognition, a soulmate finally appears. Not to rescue you, not to complete you, but to reflect you. Because the soulmate isn't a fantasy. They are a mirror, and mirrors never lie. They reflect the real you, not the performed one. You've spent years becoming this version of yourself. Soft, yet grounded. Boundaried, yet open. Introspective, yet present. You are no longer hungry for attention. You are craving truth. So, when the soulmate comes, you won't fall into obsession. You'll fall into clarity. Because they will not fall in love with your mask. They'll fall in love with your reality. They'll love the part of you that speaks without fear, the part of you that no longer begs to be seen, the part of you that finally loves being alone, yet welcomes connection, because they, too, have stopped performing. And the connection, it won't feel like fireworks. It'll feel like a frequency you've always known. Carl Jung on soulmate energy. Jung never used the modern term soulmate, but he spoke deeply about the anima and animus, the inner masculine and feminine archetypes. He believed that we project these inner patterns onto others, especially romantic partners. The meeting of two souls is not about completeness. It is about resonance. So, when you've balanced your inner world, you stop projecting. You stop falling for potential. You start connecting with presence. Your soulmate isn't your missing half. They are the outer reflection of the inner wholeness you've finally come to embody. And that's why you won't be afraid of losing them, because you know, you never truly lose what reflects who you've become. Real love doesn't feel like a rush, it feels like rest. You've been taught that love is chaos, that it's loud, fast, intense, but that was just trauma bonding, masquerading as passion. Now, you know better. When they arrive, your nervous system relaxes, your inner critic quiets, your body stops bracing for abandonment, your heart stays soft in their presence, because they won't confuse you. They'll clarify you. There's no chasing, no second guessing, no constant proving, just resonance. They don't want the version of you that had to beg for love. They want the version of you that learned to be love. From fantasy to frequency. There was a time you believed love had to feel like drama, that real passion required suffering. That deep connection had to come with deep instability. But now you know. Peace is passionate. Safety is sexy. Stability is sacred. You don't need fantasy anymore, because your life is finally in frequency. You've created space inside yourself for something real. Not perfect, but real. And that's what they bring? A love that doesn't inflate your ego, but expands your soul. A love that doesn't just feel good, but helps you become good for yourself and others. That's not fantasy. That's alignment. You can finally stay. This may surprise you, but the biggest challenge isn't finding your soulmate. It's staying when they arrive. Because real love, healthy love, requires presence. It requires you to put down your survival patterns. It requires you to speak your truth without fear of abandonment. It requires you to let someone see you, not just the healed parts, but the parts still tender. And the soulmate, they will stay, not because you hide your shadows, but because you've made peace with them. They don't need perfection. They need truth. And so do you. Life begins in a new direction. Together, you don't just love. You build. You heal generational trauma. Create rituals instead of just routines. Speak in honesty, not code. Evolve not just individually, but interdependently. This isn't the kind of love that burns out. It's the kind that gets better with time. Because the foundation is not desire. It's self-awareness. They don't complete your story. They join it. And suddenly, the chapters ahead feel sacred. Not because you need them to stay, but because you choose each other every single day. Final truth. You didn't attract your soulmate by begging the universe. You attracted them by finally becoming undeniably yourself. You let go of timelines. You let go of fantasies. You let go of trying to be the version of yourself you thought love required. And in that surrender, in that quiet, unglamorous moment of becoming, they arrived, not with a promise to save you, but with a mirror, so you could finally see the truth. You were never unworthy. You were just unfinished. Now you're whole. Now you're ready. And love recognizes itself. They're not coming to fix you. They're coming to meet you, because you finally remembered who you are. If this resonated with you, drop a comment below and share the moment your soul began to shift. Subscribe for more soul deep insights. And remember, before a soulmate arrives, the soul shifts first, and yours already has.